How do unquestioned assumptions form the most common base of any bigotry? I've heard it said about Hitler that from insane premise to monstrous conclusion, Hitler was coldly, icily logical. And the point of bringing that up is that the first rule of propaganda is if you can slide your premises by people, you've got them. And if they can accept your founding assumption, then you can take them anywhere you want. And a great example would be you hear some newscaster say, how can we make the US economy grow? What are some of the premises involved in that? One premise is that A, we want the US economy to grow. B, that we want the US economy to exist. C, who is we? And so when we hear, oh, it's great news, the stock market went up today, well, okay, that's great news, I guess, but who is that great news for? What are the implications of that great news? This is inherent in so much of our language. For example, when I'm typing into a word processing document, it will tell me when I misspell a word or when I say something that's grammatically incorrect. And very consistently, if I type in the tree who lives outside the door, it will tell me that that is grammatically incorrect, and it should be the tree that is outside the door, because trees are not subjective beings according to this premise. And this is true with no matter what we're talking about. If you presume that the world consists of resources to be exploited, that's how you will treat the world. And if your presumption is that the world consists of other beings to enter into a relationship with, that is how you will treat the world. And if those premises can become embedded in our very language, in our very definition of what it means to relate, in our very definitions of how we know something is true, then we will all act upon those presumptions without ever considering them. You know, Daniel Quinn made a wonderful point about how there's nothing fundamentally wrong with humans. And if humans are given a story to live by that causes them to perceive the world as this wonderful paradise where they are honored to be living, they will treat the world as such. And if they are given stories in which they are taught that the world is red in tooth and claw, and that the world is the enemy to be conquered, then that is how they will live. These premises are very, very crucial to our way of life, and we see them everywhere. I was at a restaurant one time, and one guy was complaining. One guy was saying to another one that he's in a lot of pain lately from a back injury or something. And the second person said, oh, stop whining, stop being such a woman. And what are the implications of that simple statement? The simple statement, the implications, the unstated assumptions, the unquestioned assumptions are that women are weaker. It's the same. This is a reason I'd never use the word bitch, because what are the implications of that word? It's just, we can see this everywhere. I'm sort of rambling around choosing examples. There's the latest word that I've heard from young people for reference to their genitals is junk. And what does it mean when you call your genitals junk? What does that imply about your perspective on your own body, on sex, on sexual pleasure, on, for that matter, reproduction? And so I think that the assumptions we make, the unquestioned assumptions we make, are, they're far more, there's a great line by Robert Coombs. I read this probably 30 years ago, which is unquestioned assumptions are the real authorities of any culture. I'm going to give another example. Richard Dawkins talks about, he says, this direct quote, "Science bases its claims to truth on its spectacular ability to make matter and energy jump through hoops on command and to predict what will happen and when." And that is true, that's one way we know that science describes the real world, is because when you flip on an electric light switch, the lights come on. Somebody had to figure out how electricity, how to make the electricity flow through wires and come into your house, and do it without, presumably without burning your house down. So there's a lot of work went into that is very true. When I open the refrigerator door, there's cold air comes out because the refrigerator refrigerates. Obviously, that's how we know science is true, is because it can make matter and energy jump through on command and to predict what will happen and when. But here's the thing, is there are very important assumptions contained within that very simple statement. That one of the sneaky things he has done is he has conflated how we know something is true, science bases its claims to truth, on domination, because it's making matter and energy jump through on command. And now think about this. What if you and I were in the same room, and what if I had a gun? And what if I point the gun at you and I say, there's a hoop over here, and on the count of 3, you're going to jump through it, and if you don't, I'm going to shoot you in the head. On the count of 3, you jump through the hoop. And then what do you know? I'm a genius, because I predicted what would happen and when, and I made matter and energy jump through hoop on command. But don't you think it's possible that by putting a gun on you and by telling you to jump through this hoop on command, that I have in fact destroyed any possibility of friendship between us? And so my point is that, yes, what Richard Dawkins says is very true, that is one way to know, but it is also conflating knowledge with domination. And when you conflate knowledge with domination, you are destroying the possibility of relationship. So that is inherent in that. Or I'll give one more example real quickly, which is, I was reading the other day a very famous and very smart philosopher / activist who was saying that the way you measure biological success is by basically the number of beings that there are. That humans are very biologically successful because we have taken over territory all over the planet. We've increased our numbers. And that, unfortunately, is not really a measure of biological success. That's a measure of overshoot. And instead, I would say that a measure of biological success is how well you increase the health of the land base and make the land base healthier and therefore more capable of supporting you and others. And his definition of biologic success is simply the same old biblical go forth and multiply, go forth and conquer. And that is also the fundamental idea behind colonialism. Okay, I'm going to sort of try to sum up very quickly, which is that one of the first and most important things that any oppressors have to do is they have to naturalize their oppression. They have to make people think that this oppression is natural or inherent, that women are naturally weaker. That's why they cry at pain and men don't, is according to this idea. That's held in that assumption. And one reason they do that is because that's how they show that they are superior. It is acceptable to enslave Africans because they are inferior, and according to the white supremacists, according to those who rationalize chattel slavery. And it's the same with any bigotry. What you want to do is you want people to internalize it so much that they never question it anymore. You naturalize it. You make it just a part of life.